You can buy it for Kindle. You can order the actual book. If you feel safe enough to go to a library, you can probably also check it out at a library. It's a very good book. It's very comprehensive, and it explains things from like a very basic level, step by step, whereas the material that you mandatorily have to read is much more compressed. Okay, so remember, what do we do in class? We get on Discord, we check if there's something of our interest on the channel for the class, and we write something on the channel, even if it's just a hello, so that the bot knows that you're actually in class this week. You are already in Twitch, and you're supposed to be asking any questions that confuse you, either in the Twitch chat or on the Discord channel. Either one works. We're supposed to be studying and discussing the material. We can do that on Discord or on Twitch. Basically, the most important thing here would be the Grimaldi textbook. I don't care if you read it in Spanish or in English. I would read it in English. And then there is the study material that's on the homework site. We also have a list of examples. It has these videos here. I actually think TinyCart is already obsolete. I moved all that information to the bot. We have a video for every single thing you need to do. Sometimes it's a whole homework, sometimes just a part of the questions. And then we have categories of examples. Some of their images, some of them are animation, some of them are interactive. So if you struggle understanding something, please go look at the examples. If you forget where they are, you just ask the bot where they are and the bot will tell you. When you put an exclamation mark in front of what you're writing, the bot's going to look at what you wrote. Okay, also remember, if another person helps you, you can either fill the web form for the help if you know their student ID, or you can use the exclamation MVP on the Discord channel to give them credit for having helped you. Looking at the Discord channel now, I can notice that Alejandro18 has never done the step about getting the role. So everybody needs to one time type exclamation role. Alejandro hasn't done it. I can see because Alejandro doesn't have the green color that everybody else has. So Alejandro, you have to do this. You have to type exclamation role. Guys, please help Alejandro. This is very important. And then to check if somebody actually told the bot their student ID, which you were also supposed to do last week, you can try MVPing them. For example, if I would like to give credits to Natalie for having helped me, I would type exclamation MVP, tag Natalie, and then say why I am giving credit. If it says thank you, then everything's great. If it starts complaining that the other person hasn't told the bot their student ID, then the other person needs to right-click on the bot and message their full student ID. Tu matrícula completa de 7 dígitos tienes que mandarlo por mensaje privado una sola vez al bot. Esto es obligatorio. So if you notice that a friend you're trying to give credit to hasn't done it, please help them carry it out. It's very important. Okay, so if we're on a computer, we could be in the homework system as such. If we're on a cell phone, we have a Spanish or an English version for the homework. If you want to look at your homework in English, but you're studying the material in Spanish, you can just open them in different tabs. It's entirely okay. It's really important that you remember to use the same email that you registered last week. It has to be the same exact one. You cannot make any typos. If you enter with a new one, you get a checkbox saying that this is a new account. If you have a new account, it means that your old points don't count anymore because you made a new account. So stay on one single account the entire course if you want to keep your points. This is very important. You will use the same email on the mobile version and the English version if you want to use them. Remember, anytime you grade any homework, you should also go to the results list and you should look at yourself. These are the last 6 digits of your student ID. This is your study program. You are signed up in M4 and the points should show here. If they don't show here, you wrote your email wrong. Nothing else will make them not add here. If you used to have 4 and you would like to have 8 and they're not showing up, you wrote the wrong username. There is no god of internet stealing your points. There is no database failure stealing your points. The only reason for your points not to be showing up would be you writing your email wrong. There is no other explanation. If your email is right, just keep pressing the grade button until you see your points. If you're not sure if your email is right, you go to the top and you stare at your email. Maybe you put Gmail instead of Hotmail. Maybe you forgot to dot. Maybe instead of a double F, you just put a single F. It's always a typo in the email. Always. It's not the Holy Spirit being against you. It's a typo at your end. So this is really important. Always check and double check your email. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. Again, another thing that could be lovely, that when you've done the homework, the programs that we were supposed to be working with a given week, you could look at old exams in PDF, or you could play with the exam system online. Actually, I put some effort yesterday into this. I made the exam system be able to give you exams in English, because you guys are going to have to do the exam in English. So you put your homework, student ID, and the email, exact the same ones. You choose which exam you want to practice. And then when you guys practice, it should give it to you automatically in English, because you're signed up in English. If you want them to show up in Spanish, you could click this box to switch the language. If it's not working as intended, then let me know. Anytime you go in, it should generate you a new exam. And since you guys are M4s, it should say that the questions are in English, and then we should have all the questions in English here. And then if we don't want them to be in English, then you guys need to flip them to Spanish. I'm not signed up for anything, and it's giving me Spanish as default, and it's giving me English only if I ask that. Okay, so now looks like I broke it for when I want to do it in Spanish. That's a lovely thing to break. I'm gonna need to look into that later. It should work for you guys without the checkbox, but it looks like I broke it for myself. Yeah. Okay, so what we're doing today are the questions 2 to 5 of the first homework. So let's go look at the first homework. Now remember, all this material here, you're supposed to study this. It doesn't make any sense for me to read this out loud for you. It's all written here. Please study it. If you haven't studied any of this, you're going to be slightly confused with the questions we are answering today. It's also okay to first look at the explanation and then read the material. But at some point, you're going to have to read the material. If you never study the material, you will have a horrible time in the exam. A horrible time. Because the exam is not going to be, let's do the homework again. It's going to be other questions. Okay, so let's first check if someone has an emergency. So on the Discrete Math channel, if you have any urgent doubts to clarify about what we did last week, please click on the red question mark. If you're all fine to continue with homework 1, click on the green thing. If you don't really know what's going on and you need a little moment to catch up, get the confused face. If you just now showed up and you don't have any idea what's going on because you weren't paying any attention, click on the last one. Remember, all of this is being recorded. You can rewatch it on Twitch. I will export it to YouTube. You can watch it 100 times if you want to. So there will always be more time. But since we have 28 people ready to proceed, 30 people ready to proceed, we are now going to work with these questions. Remember, all of the information I'm going to be talking about is here in the study material above these questions. So if you don't know what a symbol means, it's because you didn't study the material. If you don't know how to represent it in Python, it's because you didn't study the material. The material also says which chapter of the textbook you should be studying. So if you don't understand from the summary on the website, you need to open the textbook and you need to read the chapter or the section that I'm indicating for reading. This is very important. You will eventually have to read the material. You cannot do these things without ever reading the material. That's a very bad idea. Okay, so let's first do everything on the whiteboard. You guys work on your notebooks. I'm going to be working on the whiteboard. When we've calculated everything by hand, we're going to redo everything on Python so that we know how to make use of our new wonderful calculator to do these things. So I'm just going to leave this image here as huge as I possibly can so I can read it from the whiteboard. Let's just leave it zoomed in for the first couple of questions. You guys also, now, important thing to remember, my question isn't your question. You're first going to look at what I do with my question, then you can try to repeat it with yours because you will have a different binary number and you will have a different result. You will have a different base, you will have a different decimal number, you will have a different result. Don't try to put my result in your system. Yours will be different. This is very important. Also, your friends are not going to have the same question as you do. They also have different numbers. So don't ask them, Juanito, pásame la respuesta. Ask them, Juanito, explícame qué hiciste. Because them giving you the answer doesn't respond your question. Them explaining the procedure, what did they do, how did they do it, that will help you respond to your homework. But okay, let's go to the whiteboard. Okay, let me aim the camera tiny bit better. There we go. So first, binary numbers. At some point, you should have understood that the representation we have for numbers is entirely arbitrary. If we have something like 235, it just means 5 times 1, 3 times 10, and 2 times 100. And this is an arbitrary choice. We have simply chosen that we're going to use 1, 10, and 100. What are these 1, 10, and 100? This is 5 times 10 to the 0th power. This is 3 times 10 to the first power. And this is 2 times 10 to the second power. So this 10 here is the base of the representation. So what we have here, we have digits. And these digits correspond to multiples of a power of the base. So this is the 0th power, this is the first power, and this is the second power. So if I took this same number, and instead of using base 10, I used another base, let's say base 6, then I would have 2 times 6 squared plus 3 times 6 to the first power plus 5 times 6 to the 0th power. Okay, so what is this? This is 2 times 36 plus 3 times 6 plus 5 times 1. So what we have here is a 72 plus an 18 plus a 5. So 72 with 18, it looks like a 90. So this looks like a 95. So the digits 2, 3, 5 in base 6 mean 95 in base 10. And the digits 2, 3, 5 in base 10 mean 235. This number here, you would never read it as 235 because 100 means 10 squared. 30 means 3 tenths. So when we speak about stuff like 235, we're implying that this is a decimal number, that we're using base 10. If I say 235 base 6, I'm making specifically the distinguishing mark here that I'm not talking about 235. I'm talking about 2 times 6 squared, 3 times 6 plus 5. Anything elevated to the 0th power is always going to be a 1. So that's very easy. Okay, so why am I talking about this if we're talking binary numbers? Binary numbers are base 2 numbers. So the power will always be a power of 2. 235 cannot be a binary number because in every base, the possible digits need to be smaller than the base. In base 10, my digits are from 0 to 9. In base 6, my digits are from 0 to 5. Why cannot I have a 10 as a digit here? Two reasons. I cannot put two different numbers in one single digit. It doesn't fit. The digits have to be individual symbols because every single one corresponds to a different power. Another thing, if I put 1 10 times, it's the same thing as putting 10 one time. So anytime I want to put a digits that equal to the base, I'm actually supposed to be incrementing the following digits. So for example, a 400 is 4 times the square, no times the 10, and no times the 1. So we could have 0 digits when the power isn't present, but we can never have the base amount. So for example, 666 cannot be a number in base 6. It has to be base 7 or above. So when my base is 2, my only permitted digits are 0 and 1 because I cannot have 2 times a power of 2 in a binary representation. I'm going to take a picture for you guys of what I have on the whiteboard now, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense on its own, but it might be helpful as a reminder for people who are actually listening to my explanation. So let's be nice and take a picture. There's always a reflection from the window. It gets on my nerves. There we go, sending you guys the picture. So I can erase all of this and we can start talking about the binary numbers. Okay, so now important things to remember. Base is going to be 2. The exponents always go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what we're looking at is how many times do different powers of 2 enter the number. So this is going to be really simple. There are many methods, many algorithms, many tricks to do this. But the first thing we need to ensure is that everybody understands what this means. What kind of a technique you use later on to do these conversions, it's trivial, irrelevant, not of my interest. As long as you understand what you're doing and you understand why it works, I don't care how you do this. Okay, so let's try a small number first. 1, 1, 0, base 2. First, we need to think about the powers. 0, 1, 2. I could put more powers in here if I want it a longer number. When there are no digits in the front, you just imagine zeros. It's 0 times all of those other things. So if I just have 1, 1, 0, what does this mean? Let's think about the powers of 2 that are being multiplied here. 2 to the 0 is 1. 2 to the 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Cubed is 8. Then it's going to be 16, 32, 64, 128. No, I skipped one. 16. No, I just misaligned them. I didn't skip them, I misaligned them. The 4 is the 16, the 5 is the 32, the 6 is the 64, the 7 is the 128, and the 8 is the 256. What's the easiest way to get powers of 2? Multiply the previous one by 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 16 is 32. 2 times 32 is 64. 2 times 64 is 128. 2 times 128 is 256. Next one is 512. Then 1024. Then 2048. Then 4096, etc. When you work as an engineer, you will eventually end up memorizing all of these powers because you need them all the time. Okay, so now if I have a number that's 110, it means the 4 will be in the sum one time. The 2 will be in the sum one time. The 1 will not be in the sum because it's a 0, so it's 0 times. So this is really easy. I'm just summing 4 plus 2, I get a 6. So 110 in base 2 is a 6 in base 10. Let's get some more bits into this. Let's add 2 more bits, this and this. So now it means that I'm summing this 6 with this 16 and this 8 as well. So what do I have here? I have here a 10, I have here a 20, So total, I have a 30. I have a 1, 1, 1, 1, 0 in base 2, and that's a 30 in base 10. Okay, more bits. We're closing into what I have in my homework. There's 4 ones, then there's some zeros. Remember, the zeros mean doesn't go, doesn't go, doesn't go. So we don't have to sum them. Then I have 2 more zeros in the front. So I get the 8th and the 9th. This one and this one will go into the sum. These ones won't go because they have zeros. So what I need to be doing is taking the 512 and the 256, and I'm summing them with the 30 I already had. So here I have an 8. Here it looks like I have a 9. So I should have a 700 and a 98 as my result. Remember, the zeros and the ones are whether or not I am taking the powers of 2. Remember that the first power is always a 0. A rookie mistake would be trying to put a 1 here. It's not a 1, it's always a 0. And you have to go from right to left. Another rookie mistake is putting them the other way around. But remember, just as in 123, the smallest one is the 3. It's in the right-hand side. The smallest digit is the right-hand side in your regular base 10 numbers. So the smallest digit will always be the right-hand side in any other base as well. Okay, so now we're going to take a couple of minutes and you guys are going to try to do this with your own number for the question 2. When you've done it and you've graded it, you can put a photo of what you did on your notebook on the channel. And if you got it wrong, we can use that photo to determine what's your mistake. If you got it right, we're using your photo as an example for other people on, hey, this guy knows how to do it. I'm just going to look at what he did and I'm going to follow the steps. So write your number bit by bit. Write the powers starting from 0 from the right. Write the powers of 2 in any way you want in a nice clear table so that you can mark which ones you will and which ones you will not include in the sum. Sum them all to get the decimal representation. I'm going to pause the stream for a couple of minutes and I'm going to put a poll on Discord. When 20 people have put the green thing on Discord that they understand, then we will start looking at question number 3. Ok, vamos regresando, ya varias personas pudieron. Si estás batallando, fíjate en los ejemplos de las personas que están subiendo fotos, fíjate en mi ejemplo del pizarrón o fíjate en la explicación que les he hecho para la página de ejemplos. O sea, esto no es muy complicado, pero sí es algo que necesitas practicar muchas veces para que se te haga como de columna vertebral, que jamás se te vaya a olvidar cómo se hace esto. Terminando con las 5 preguntas, vamos a revisitar las preguntas 2, 3, 4, 5 en Python, pero quiero que primero trabajemos en pizarrón y libreta para que no estemos brincando de una cosa a otra. Entonces, nuestra tercera pregunta acá, esto es muy parecido, es exactamente lo mismo, pero lo estamos trabajando al revés y en base 4 en lugar de base 2. Entonces, vamos a ver qué significa esto de trabajarlo al revés. Lo que nosotros estábamos haciendo acá era, teníamos un número en base 2 y lo queríamos poner en base 10. ¿Cómo lo haría yo al revés? ¿Cómo yo voy a recuperar los bits si yo comienzo con este número en base 10? Lo primero que yo voy a tener que hacer es tener en la cabeza las potencias de 2. Tengo que empezar a ver las potencias de 2. El 4096 cabe en el 798, no cabe, no mames, o sea, no, ni forma. 2000 y pico tampoco, no cabe. 1000 y pico, no cabe. 512, sí cabe. Entonces lo que yo voy a hacer es tomar mi 798 y le voy a quitar el 512. Me va a quedar acá un 6, me va a quedar acá un 8 y me va a quedar acá un 2. Entonces, este sí cupo. Luego, el que sigue, 256, ¿cabe en el 286? Sí cabe. 256 lo vamos a quitar porque sí cabe. Vamos a realizar la resta acá. Del 6 quito 6, me queda un 0. Del 8 quito un 5, me queda un 3. Acá me queda un 0, me quedó un 30. 128 cabe en 30, no cabe. 64 cabe en 30, no cabe. 32 cabe en 30, no cabe. 16 sí cabe. En 30 sí cabe un 16 y me va a quedar un 14. Este sí cupo. El 8 cabe en 14, sí cabe. ¿Qué me queda? Me queda un 6. En el 6 sí cabe el 4. ¿Qué me queda? Me queda un 2. En el 2 sí cabe el 2. ¿Qué me queda? Me queda un 0. En el 0 cabe el 1. No cabe. Entonces ahora, de mis sí y mis no, yo estoy recuperando un 1 por cada sí, 1 por cada sí, 0 por cada no. Un 1 por cada sí, 1 por cada sí, 1, 1 y el último es un no. Súper importante no olvidar el último, 0. Si tú tienes ceros al final hay que ponerlos, porque si no los ponemos, se nos van a recorrer las potencias cuando intentamos interpretarlo nuevamente. Entonces, este es como hacerlo al revés. Cuando yo comienzo de base 10 y yo quiero ir, oh, I've changed languages. You guys need to let me know when I do this. I'm really good at doing this. So we are now supposed to be working from base 10 towards another base. Okay? So in this question, we're given a decimal number, a number that is in base 10, and we need to put this number to a base 4 representation. So what we are being asked is which powers of 4, how many times add up to the number we want. So I have a 7, 5, 4, 0, and this is a base 10 number, and I want to take it to base 4. Base 4 is kind of nice because 4 is a power of 2, so we're just going to be skipping some powers there. 4 to the 0 is 1, because anything to the 0 is 1. 4 to the 1 is a 4. 4 squared is a 16. Cubed is a 16 times a 16. That kind of feels like 256, because we're always going to be skipping powers of 2. Here we're skipping the 2. Here we're skipping the 8. Now I'm actually getting ahead of myself. Let's see. 16 times 4. 16 times 4 is 64. We're skipping the 32. Then we're going to be skipping the 128. And we're going to the 256. Then we're skipping the 512, and we are going to 1024. So let's see if I'm doing this correct here. I'm gonna have to write the other ones. We skipped the 2, we skipped the 8, we skipped the 32, we skipped the 128, and we skipped the 512. That should be okay, okay? Because this one is 2 squared. This one is 2 to the power of 4. This one's 2 to the power of 6. This one's 2 to the power of, let me write this. Not here and not in the same color. So this one is a 2 squared. So that's a 4 to the first power. And this one here is a 2 to the 4 because it's a 4 to the 2. So basically this 4, we can always type it like 2 squared. So then here, what I have a 4 elevated to the third. So I have a 2 squared elevated to the third. So this one gives me the 2 elevated to the product of these two, 2 and 3. That gives me a 6. And here I should have a 4 elevated to the fourth power, 2 to the 2 to the 4. So that should give me a 2 to the 8. And here I have a 2 elevated to the squared, and then the 5. So that's a 2 to the 10. Okay, so they should be fine. In Python, it's going to be really easy to get all this out. Now we're just doing it in the head because it's really important to do these things in the head. Someone's typing something on Twitch. People are asking things. I'm pretty sure everybody here actually speaks Finnish and, no, not Finnish. I'm the only one who speaks Finnish, Spanish and English. Everybody, I think, speaks Spanish and English. Okay. So now we are trying to do this number, and notice that this one still fits tons of times here, so we need more. We need 4 to the 6. So we're going to skip the 2000 and, let me write those again. We're going to skip this one. And it gives us this one here. And then the next one, 4 to the 7th, would be 4 times this number. 4 times this number is much bigger than 7,000. So this one's going to be the last one that actually fits. Okay, so let's take this last one that actually fits and start taking it out. 4,096. I want to take it out of there because this one actually fits one time. Super important to notice it fits one time. So, okay, from here I have to borrow, so I get a 10 here. I take the 6 out of a 10, I'm with a 4. To borrow here, I have a 13. I take a 9 from the 13, I get a 4. From a 4, I take nothing, I get a 4. From a 7, I take a 4, I should get a 3. If I make a mistake here, we're going to notice eventually, don't panic. I'm really bad at doing stuff like in my head and on whiteboard, but that's why we need to practice. So the next thing will be, how many times does the 1024 fit? And remember, we have base 4. So possible digits are no times, 1 time, twice, and thrice. It can never fit 4 times. Fitting 4 times would be a mistake because the digit has to be smaller than the base. So it clearly fits at least once. It actually clearly fits 2 times. So let's take the 2 times out and see if it fits more. I need to borrow. From 14, I'm taking 8. So I'm getting staying with 6. Then from 13, I'm taking 4. It gives me a 9. From 3, I take nothing. Okay, it fits a third time. Let's take the 1024 one more time. I get a 2, I get a 7, I get a 3, and I get nothing else. So this thing here also fits, and it fits 3 times. Okay? Then the 256, it looks like it's going to fit 1 time. Going to fit, let's take it out. From 12, I'm taking a 6. So I get a 6. From 6, I'm taking a 5. Okay, it fit 1 time. Then the 64. The 64 clearly fits here, but only 1 time. So fits one time, the 64. Take 4 out of a 6, I get a 2. Take from an 11 a 6, I get a 5. In that 52, 16 is going to fit several times. Okay, so let's see. From 52, I need to take out 16. It fits clearly at least through 2 times. So let's take the 2 times out first. If I take 32 out of a 52, I get a 0 here and a 20 here. In that 20, the 16 fits one more time. Let's take it out. I get a 4. So the 16 fit 3 times. And notice I'm not doing division. You could do division, but in your head and on paper, subtraction is much faster than division. It's much easier to reason. If you guys are really good at dividing, if you're like higher in the autism spectrum than I am, be my guest, divide. I like to repeatedly subtract because it's really fast for me. Okay, so the 16 fits 3 times. How many times is the 4 going to fit? The 4 is going to fit 1 time exactly. Fits 1 time. And we got a 0, so nothing else will fit. This one will not fit any times at all. And when it doesn't fit any times at all, we have to remember to put the 0 digit. So now I can recover my number. Remember, the small ones go on the right. So it's a 0, 1, 3. 0, 1, 3, then 1, 1, 3, 1, base 4. 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1, 0, base 4 is the same number as 7,540 in base 10. Now, if you're really, really bad at math and you have still somehow decided to become an engineer, you might need to use a calculator if your base is something more complicated than 4. Like, for example, getting high powers of 7, I get lost. Powers of 5 are really easy. Powers of 4 and 8 are really easy. Powers of 3, I kind of memorized in like primary school. But when I have to work with base 6, base 11, base 7, I usually end up using Python. But if you guys make the effort, it should work. If you need to use a calculator in an emergency, you can. We're going to use this in Python. Just remember that in the exam, you will not be able to use Python. You will not be able to use a calculator. You need to be able to show me that you did this by hand. So just practice getting powers of integers, practice getting the subtractions done, and if you're really good at dividing, do the divisions. So now we're going to do the same thing as we did with the previous question. We're going to take a tiny break from the stream. I'm going to put a poll on Discord. You will post pictures of your notebook when you're done with the calculations. And it's very important. If you get an error, we need to see what you did so we can point out what the mistake is. Common mistakes are getting the powers wrong, like getting confused in multiplying this by 4 and this by 4 and this by 4. When you look at them, it's kind of easy to understand that each one should be the 4 times the previous one. If your base is 5, you're in luck. And then when you have all the powers, starting from the largest one, how many times does it fit? The next one, how many times does it fit? And the next time, how many times does it fit? And if it doesn't fit at all, you need to remember to put the zeros. When you have all the digits, you put the smallest power to the right and you just accommodate them. It shouldn't be difficult, but I know that on the first try, it might seem confusing. So we'll be back on the stream after a couple of minutes and we'll be on Discord in the meantime. Okay, let's do another quick example because Andre has a very high base. So let's look at what happens when the bases are larger than 10. You don't always have to put letters when the base is larger than 10. It really depends on your number. So what would it mean if I had a base 20 number that were A, B, C base 20? What does this mean? It means A times 20 squared plus B times 20 plus C times 1. 20 squared is a 400, so this is an A times 400. What are A, B, and C? They're digits, they're not variables. When your base is larger than 10, you run out of digits because the digits always start 0, 1, 2, blah, 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 8, 9. Then, what if something fits 17 times? Because in base 20, it could fit 17 times. We need letters. A is going to be 10. B is going to be 11. C is going to be 12. D is 13. E, 14. F, 15. So in base 16, we go up to F. G is 16 for base 17. H is 17. I is 18 and J is 19. So you just need to know your alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So in base 20, we have these 20 digits from 0 to 19, and 19 is a J. So ABC means 10 times 400 plus 11 times 20 plus 12 times 1. So what I have here is a 4,000. What I have here is a 220. And what I have here is a 12. So 4,232 should be the base 10 for ABC, base 20. So do you need to have letters? It depends on how many times things fit. Because also 1, 2, 3 is a perfectly valid base 20 number. It means 1 times 400, 2 times 20, plus 3 times 1. So 443 base 10 is 1, 2, 3 base 20. So you don't have to have letters. It depends on whether you need digits that are larger than 10. I'll take a picture of this too. Let me just check how we're going with the question here. That if we're good to continue, then we still need 2 more people to finish. And 6 people need more time. So we're waiting on Eduardo, Andre, and 4 other people. It's a little more laborious with some bases because the powers are non-trivial. Dividing or subtracting takes a longer time. So this is why this is going to be much nicer in Python. But I don't want you guys just like blindly clicking buttons. I actually need you guys to know what's going on. So that's why we are doing everything by hand first to go through the proper suffering. And then we will see how nice all of this is going to be in Python. Okay, it looks like we have enough people to continue to the next question. So let's look at the next question again. And now, believe me, guys, this is the part where people get horribly confused in the midterm exam. This is exactly the topic where most people get things wrong, because this is going to be actually very simple, but there are many steps to this. And if you try to memorize instead of understanding, these steps will not work. What we're going to do is essentially Boolean logic, which will also happen in the fifth question, but we're going to do it with binary representation of numbers. So I have a number here, A, that's 2,360. I have a B, that's 151, and I have a C, that's a 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bits of B and I'm going to add 2 zeros to the end. This here is a bit shift to the left. And the number here says how many positions I am shifting. So I need to take the bits of B and I need to add 2 zeros to it. Then I am going to perform a logical AND between the bits of A and the resulting bits of the bit shift from C. So the first thing I need to do is I need to put both A and B to binary, and then I need to add 2 zeros to B. Let's do that first. So my A is 2,360. We need to put this in binary. So the power that fits first is going to be the 2048. It will fit. I'm taking an 8 out of a 10. I get a 2. I'm taking a 4 out of a 5. I get a 1. Here I get a 3. Okay, so that one fit. We got a 1 bit there. The 1024 doesn't fit. 512 doesn't fit either. 256 will fit. How many times will it fit? From 12 I take 6, I get 6. From 9 I take 5, I get 4. From 3 I get 2, I get a 1. Okay, so the 256 fits. The 128 will also fit. Let's take it out. From 16 I am taking out 8. It leaves me with another 8. From 3 I take out 2. It gives me a 1 and there's a 0 there. So 64 doesn't fit. 32 doesn't fit. 16 fits. I take out the 16, only 2 left. So 8 doesn't fit, 4 doesn't fit, 2 fits, and then when the 2 fits, 1 doesn't fit anymore. So these are the bits of A. This is exactly what we did in question number 2. Then I need the bits of B. B was 151. The first one that fits is 128. 128 fits. Taking from 11, 8, I get a 3. Taking from 4, 2, I get a 2. Nothing goes here. 64 doesn't fit. 32 doesn't fit. 16 fits. I from 13 get a 6. It leaves me with a 7. Okay, so 16 fits, but 8 doesn't. Then 4, 2, and 1, they will all fit because they sum up to 7. So 4, 2, and 1, they all fit. These will be the bits of B. Then B pushed to the left by 2 positions means adding 2 zeros. So that's going to be the bits of B, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, and then 2 additional zeros at the end. This is the first part we're doing. This is binary arithmetic. So I need to take my numbers and I need to put them to binary. Then when I have them in binary, I need to align them. This here is A. I'm going to align it with the B shifted by 2 positions carefully from the right. So I have 0, 0, 0, 0. Then I have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. Then I have 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. And then I have 0 and a 1. And when our numbers have different length, I'm just going to imagine zeros in the front because zeros in the front do not affect the value of the number. So I can always add zeros in the front if I want to. What I'm going to do now is a logical AND. If you've studied any electronics, you have run into the concept of a logical AND before. An AND gate is a gate that takes 2 inputs. If both inputs are true, the output will be true. So what I am checking if both are 1, the result's going to be 1. If not both are 1, the result's going to be 0. So 0 with 0 is going to give me 0. 1 with 0, 0. 0 with 1, 0. 0 with 1, 0. Here both are 1, so I actually get a 1. Then I get a 0 and 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 a 0. Okay? Now I can notice that I actually have made a mistake somewhere in my conversion because I didn't get a 24. I should get a 24, but instead of a 24, I've gotten a 32. So now we need to find my mistake. It has to be in one of my subtractions here. Actually, let's use Python to check this. Takes less of my time and less of your time. So I'm going to take a picture of the whiteboard, and then we're going to do the double checking in Python to try to find where did I subtract wrong. And don't worry, in the exam, your numbers for A and B are never going to be this big. Never, ever. I'm going to take 2 separate pictures. One of them is my logical AND. And the other one's going to be the subtractions where there is necessarily a mistake. You guys might already know where the mistake is, but we're going to find it carefully anyway. Okay, so let's get a Python, a big one, so you guys can actually see it, and start working through how would I get the bits in Python. I'm going to show you after we're done with question 5 how to get them automatically. Now we're just going to be subtracting the powers. So let's think, how do I get powers of 2? If you read the study material, you know you can make a for loop. You could say I make a for pot in range 10, and then I could just put here one tabulator, and then I could print a 2 elevated to the power. So I can look at powers of 2. If I want to make it a little bit more longer, I just make it the range higher. And if I want to see what power it is, I could print both the pot and the 2 elevated to the pot. So I know that the 0th power is 1, the first power is 2, the squared is 4, etc. So now I have these powers, and I am interested in the number A, that's 2,360. So let's take from there the 2048. We should have a 312, which is exactly what I have on the whiteboard. Then we're taking out of there the 256, which gives a 56. And this is where I've made a mistake. I've managed to somehow, from a 9, I took a 5. Oh, I didn't borrow right. When I couldn't take from the 1, I should have borrowed from the 3. I found my mistake. This is exactly the kind of stuff I do. So let's go to the whiteboard and fix it. Let's fix my shit. So here is where we're going from. Wrong. I tried to take from the 9 without borrowing from here. So this one doesn't exist, meaning that this is going to be a 56, meaning that the 128 will not fit. So the 2048 fits. Then the 500, the 1000 doesn't fit, the 500 doesn't fit, the 200 does fit. But the 64 is not going to fit. The 32 is going to fit instead. Okay, now let's not make this horrible. This is the 248. This is the 124. This is a 512. This is a 256. 128 doesn't fit. 64 doesn't fit. And the 32 does fit. So 32 fits. Let's take the 32 out. I get a 4 and I get a 2. So the 16 should fit. and we should get an 8. So the 16 fits, and then the 8 is going to fit. But then nothing else will fit. The 4 is not going to fit, the 2 is not going to fit, and the 1's not going to fit. 4, 2, 1. So now I have to update my AND. 0, 0 still gives 0, still gives 0. And now I get a 1 over here because there's 2 1's there now. This one remains, and all the rest are going to be zeros. So now this is my result. What integer is my result? So if this is a 1 and this is a 2 and this is a 4 and this is an 8 and this is a 16, what I have here is a 16 plus an 8, that's a 24. So meaning that if I have a 2360 and I make a logical AND with 151 pushed by 2 positions, I will obtain a 24. Okay, let's take another picture of the cleaned up version of my calculations. The B part was right, so I'm just going to take a picture of the corrected A part. And now you guys are going to do this on your own for your question 4. So just remember, there are very specific steps you need to be doing. The very first thing you do is you take your number A and you carefully convert it to binary. Then you take your number B and you carefully convert it to binary. Then you look at your number C. You will add as many zeros as C indicates to the end of the binary representation of B. Then you will write A on top of B. You will align them so that they match on the right side. You will add zeros in front of the shorter one if they don't have the same length. Then for every single column, you will carefully calculate which positions have a 1 in both of those binary representations. I'm also going to get you guys a link to the example of the binary A right here. This is an AND, and this is what you will do. So it's repeat question 2 times. The other way around, you're going from decimal to binary, then align the numbers and column by column check if both of them are 1. Only if both are 1, you put a 1 in the result, and then you go back to the decimal representation for the result. We're going to take a little screenshot of what I did here in Python to get the powers in case you guys want to print some powers yourself. All this stuff about how to use for and range, it's on the study material. Please consider taking some time between classes to go over some of the study material. I know that the traditional teaching method would be me reading out loud the study material and then you guys doing the homework on your own. In all my experience of teaching, that's a horrible idea. That's a really horrible idea because you guys will space out when I just talk. You won't remember anything what we spoke about. Then when you try to do the homework, you panic. So I strongly prefer us doing things together and you guys reading on your own time, because the other way around, I just don't find it helpful. But I'm sure that there are lovely YouTube videos of other teachers reading out loud textbooks if that's helpful to you in particular. So let's now try the problem number 4, the binary arithmetic. Remember, step by step. First A and B into binary. Then you add C amount of zeros at the right-hand side of B. Then you align A with B. You put zeros in front of the shorter one, and column by column you check if both are 1. Then the resulting bits, you go back to the decimal representation, and that's your response. I know this is going to take a little longer, so we're going to take a little pause on the stream again, and there's going to be a poll on Discord. And I would really appreciate if we could get pictures of what people did on their notebooks from at least 3 people. And especially if you get an error, we need to see what you did because it's really easy to make a mistake. I just made one subtracting numbers. So you guys can easily make a similar mistake, and another pair of eyes will be able to tell you in seconds what's wrong so that it doesn't take a long time. So let's take a few minutes to answer this question. Then we'll go back to the whiteboard, answer question number 5, and then we'll redo all the 4 questions of today on Python. We're still giving a tiny bit of time so that Andre, Mauricio, and 2 other people can finish their calculations. If you're utterly lost, don't stress about it. You can do this at any later point, and you can rewatch the video as many times as you want to. Still waiting for a little bit. Remember, if you're already good, click again on the confused face and then on the green thing. And if you think you're going to take so long that it doesn't make any sense to wait for you, you can just change to the sleeping face and take away the I need more time. I really don't want to rush anybody, but I also don't want to have 17 people falling asleep or drifting off because we're taking too long. I'd like to remind you that there's a step-by-step video of all of the 5 questions of this homework already on YouTube. You can play it at the speed that you would like, and it's very easy to pause. There is no audio, so you can just look at what's happening in the video and follow the steps for your own problem. Very easy. André, Luis. Si a mero sale, les esperamos. Si va a tardar mucho, sería mejor continuar para que alcancemos a hacer la parte de Python también antes de que se acabe la clase. Okay, here we have Hector's solution. Looks lovely. You guys have like better handwriting than I do. Let's put a penguin on it. Okay, 19 people have finished. 1 more person finishes, and we're going to go to the last question. Okay, we are good to continue. So, our last question, we're going to evaluate a binary expression. So we're going to do Boolean logic. We have here math symbols. We're going to see later how to do these math symbols in Python. The V that's upside down, it's going to be a logical AND. So just the thing we just did. An AND is true when both inputs are true. When the V is the other way around, it's an OR. An OR is a much looser thing as an AND. An OR will be 1 when at least one of the inputs is 1. So the only way to get a 0 in an OR would be both inputs being 0. And the only way to get a 1 in an AND would be both inputs being 1. The weird L thing, it's a negation. It's a not. It converts a 1 into a 0 and vice versa. So the first thing I'm going to do on the whiteboard are going to be the truth tables of the operators or, and not. Then we're going to draw the decision tree corresponding to this expression, respecting the parentheses. Then finally, we're going to plug in the inputs to the 3 variables, and we're going to calculate the truth value of the entire expression. So let's get rid of the binary arithmetic and start with the Boolean logic. So if I have 2 variables, A and B, A could be either false or true, and B can be either false or true. I can have 4 different combinations, both false, A false and B true, A true and B false, or both true. Then if I want to calculate their logical AND, the easiest way to remember this is imagine this being an A. That way you can remember it's an AND because it looks like an A. So the AND will only have a 1 when both of the inputs are 1. All the others are going to be 0. Whereas the OR, which is the other way around, the V thing, it's only going to have a false when both are false. All the other options will give a true. The negation flips them. So if I put here a not A, whenever A is true, a not A will be false, and whenever A is false, not A will be true. So this is our truth table. My expression here is I have an X, it's in an OR with a Z. That thing is an AND with a not of a not Y or not Z. Okay, let's draw this. So I have here an X and I have here a Z. Those will be two inputs to an OR. Here I have a Y. It's going to be an input to a negation. I have a Z. It's going to be an input to a negation. So this part and this part. Then they together will enter an OR to create this part. That OR will enter a negation to create this part. And then that part there, together with this other branch here, they will enter an AND to give the final result. So now I have like this little circuit. Whatever value comes out of here is going to be the output of my little circuit. So let's start putting values in there. Let me find a pen. So it says in the homework that my X is going to be 1. So I'm going to send a 1 in the X. It means a 1's arriving here to the OR gate, and I can't do anything because I don't know what Z's giving. So it says that this one's going to be giving a 0. So a 0 enters here, and a 0 goes into the OR. An OR between a 1 and a 0, it's going to give me a 1, because for an OR, it's enough to have one of them as 1. So if I tell you guys I'm going to take you to the movies or to have dinner, if we go to the movies, we're fine. And if we go to have dinner, it's fine. We don't have to do both because I said or. But note, it's not either or. It can be one or both. It doesn't have to be just one. As long as it's at least one, we're fine. Okay, on the other side, I need the value of y. Y is a 1. So this not receives a 1 and it sends out a 0 because it flips the value. The z here, it receives a 0. That 0 gets flipped, so it sends out a 1. So now this OR gets a 0 and a 1. It's happy with just one here, so it's going to send out a 1. That negation will flip the 1 into a 0. So now my AND is getting a 1 and a 0. AND doesn't want any zeros. If AND sees a 0, it's going to give an output 0. It wants both of them to be 1 to produce a 1. So this expression with this assignment, if y is 1, z is 0, and x is 1, this evaluates to false. False is 0. So that's what's going on here. And now everybody has the same tree. We all have the same expression. What differs is our assignment. So your values for A, Y, Z might be different. You just put your values into the same circuit. You carefully evaluate from the bottom towards the top to get your final result. You should be much faster than the previous questions. I'm going to put a picture on Discord. Going to be two different pictures. One of them is going to have the truth tables. Please, under no circumstances, attempt to memorize truth tables. It's a very bad idea to memorize it because if it changes order, you will be confused. What you need to be doing is understanding what does or mean, what does and mean, and what does not mean. If you understand what they mean, you can always recreate all the truth tables you need. If you try to memorize 1 0 0 0 0 1 0 1 0 1, it's going to be a clusterfuck, guys. You're not going to remember it. You're going to make a mistake, and then everything's going to be wrong because your logic will be literally wrong. So let's take a moment to try to answer this one. I'll make the poll again. A couple of people still need a little bit more time. The important things to remember here are an AND only gives a 1 if both inputs are 1. An OR only gives a 0 if both inputs are 0. A NOT flips the value of whatever you put into it. And you need to respect the parentheses, carefully evaluating from the inside to the out. The NOT symbol has precedence over anything else. So you have to do the NOT Y before you can do the OR with the NOT Z. I can't decide whether to say Z or Z. That's the problem when you teach you British English and then you live in the US. You get this like weird mixed English for the rest of your life. And also, if you just want the points and you don't want to struggle, this is a really easy question. Put a 0, grade. If it says it's wrong, put a 1 and grade again. The answer is going to be either 0 or 1. It's not going to be anything else for anyone else. So it's like 3 points. But before the exam, it's important we know how to do this and we know why it works so that you won't be confused later in your profession or while we're taking the midterm exam. While people are still finishing, I'll show you guys how to use the interactive example thing I made. It's a horrible JavaScript hack. So up here, you will write the expression you want. So what we have is, let's get rid of this. I press the button to make the symbols. I'm going to have an X. It's going to be in an OR with a Z. That's going to close. Then there's going to be an AND. Then there's going to be a NOT. Then there's going to be a NOT Y or a NOT Z, closing a parenthesis, fixing the expression. The precedence, I'm going to use the default precedence. I need to pick which variables are going to be true. For my case, that was X and Y. They're going to be, no, just X and Y. Z's going to be false. Then I evaluate. So X is true, Z's not. Their OR is going to be true. Y is true, its negation is going to be false. Z is false, its negation is going to be true. An AND, oh, I put an AND where I was supposed to put a 4. I have to do it again. Sorry. Okay, let's be very careful now. X or Z. And not Y or, last time I put an AND and I messed it up. Z, there we go. Fixing again, leaving that alone. Selecting the X and the Y and evaluating. So now it's exactly what's on the whiteboard. I'm putting the inputs in the squares. I'm putting the operators in the circles. I'm putting green things around them when they evaluate to true. I know this is not the most usable thing because if you are colorblind, you will struggle horribly, which is why it's also written here on the top, the evaluation of every single sub-expression. So this expression will give a 0 in the end. But this is a little bit of a prettier picture than the one I have on the whiteboard because my code's drawing it, not me. If you want to look at the code, just click on View Page Source. You can see everything that's going on here. And you can go look at the JavaScript of how do I evaluate the expression and how do I draw the tree. This might be of importance and interest to people who work with programming. Okay, so I think we are good now, so we can revisit all of our questions, doing them in Python. So let's go up in Discord to find the questions again, because I'm dumb enough to have closed them. There they are. And let's do all of this in Python now. So now I have a binary number and I want to know what it's in decimal. If I just want to verify this in Python, I can use the int function. To the int function, I will type it a string 11000 11110. I will tell it, hey, Python, This is a base 2 number. I want to know what it's worth in base 10. And it will immediately give me the response. So you're not actually doing any math here. You're just asking Python, hey, Python, what's the response? If you wanted to do this reasonably, then you could either use an algorithm that does things a very specific way, or you could do what we did here. You could look at the powers, and then you could look at which powers are these, so that you can see that it's the 512 and the 256. And then we're skipping the 128, the 64, and the 32. We are getting the 16, we're getting the 8, we're getting the 4, and we're getting the 2, but we're not getting the 1. So here I'm just using the powers that I already printed. Also in the examples page, there's an algorithm where I do this one by one, evaluating the bits. There's actually 2 different algorithms. It's under the conversion of bases, I think, for Python. So if you're a person who already knows programming, please take a look at it. I don't want to confuse people who don't actually know how to program. So we're just going to be happy with either doing the sums or using the int function to check what the value is. Then, in the second question, no, the third question, because the second one was the first one today. Come on. We were representing in a different base a number. So I have my number, that's 7,540, and I want to put it to base 4. So again, to not confuse people who don't know how to program, we're just going to take some powers of 4. So we're going to print what power it is, and then 4 and the power. I can see them. I can see that these are way too big. So the first one that's going to fit is the 6th one. So I'm going to see how many times does 4 elevated to the 6th power fit in my n. This is integer division. How many times does it fit? It fits 1 time. Then I'm interested in what's the residue. How much was left over from taking that 4,000 and some away from n. So my leftover is the 3,000 and then some. In that leftover, how many times does the 5th power fit? It fits 3 times. What's the leftover? 372. We used to have that on the whiteboard. In that leftover, how many times does the 4 elevated to the 4th power fit? 1 time. What's the leftover? 116. In that leftover, how many times can I fit the cubic? 1 time. What's the leftover? 52. In that 52, how many times can I fit the square? 3 times. What's the leftover? A 4. In that 4, I already know I can fit 4 1 time, and 1's not going to fit at all. So now I have my digits. The 6th power, 1 time. 5th one, 3 times. 4th one, 1 time. 3rd one, 1 time. 2nd one, 3 times. Power 1, 1 time. Power 1, 0 times. And this was a base 4 number. So I have recovered the original number that I had by repeatedly looking into how many times does it fit, what's the residue, what's the leftover, what's the part where it didn't fit. And in order to not have to type everything many times, I just kept clicking the arrow up to get the previous line. If arrow up doesn't work in your idle, Windows idle, sometimes it doesn't like arrow up. You're just going to copy paste and copy paste and copy paste, or you're going to type stuff like 116 divided by 4 elevated to 3rd instead of using the expression for it. But it's the same thing I did on the whiteboard. Power by power, systematically, I'm looking into which ones fit. How many times do they fit? I'm going to take a couple of separate screenshots of what's going on here. So this is where I get the powers. And then this is where I do the process of how many times does the biggest one fit, what's the leftover, etc. I could, of course, also write this as a subroutine, as an algorithm, and that's what I've done on the examples page. You guys can look at it there, but I do not want to cause panic in people who don't know programming. So anybody who's interested can go look at that on their own. Then the binary arithmetic. So I need the bits of A. How do I get the bits of A? I will put here the value of A. It's going to be 2,360. And the value of B is going to be 151. I can just ask Python for the bits. Give me the bits of A and give me the bits of B. The 0B in front means this is a binary string. The rest of it are the actual bits of A and the actual bits of B. So now if I want to look at what B is after the bit shift, I could put here that C is a 2. If I push B by 2 positions, it changes value to a 604, which is unsurprisingly 2 times 2 times 151. Because anytime I put a new 0, I push all the powers 1 position, and pushing all the powers of 2 by 1 position is multiplying by 2. So the bits of B pushed by C, I can also get them straight up. And the bits of A. So now if I wanted to do this semi by hand, semi by Python, what I would do is I would open some kind of a text editor. I would carefully copy the bits of A. I would also carefully copy the bits of B pushed by those positions. I would align them with zeros in front. And then I could just do my AND here. It's a 0, it's a 0, it's a 0, it's a 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. And then if I'm really lazy, I would just take these bits here again. And I would go ask Python, what's this worth? I made a mistake somewhere. These are the bits that I was supposed to have. Sorry. There we go. And if I don't want to do any of this by hand, I can ask Python to do the whole thing, because I can ask it what's B pushed by C. So I could just put that in parentheses, and then I could do the AND with A, exactly like that, to get the response. And if I want to look at what bits they have to see if my manual calculation is correct, I just use the bin. So let me take some screenshots of this too, so that you guys can remember this stuff. I'll put it in 2 parts so that the part where I made the mistake is not in the screenshot, so you don't have to lose sleep over it later. And this is how we do binary arithmetic in Python. In your actual profession, you will hardly ever do it by hand. But if you don't understand it by hand, you're going to make mistakes when you're doing it with an automated tool like Python. So that's why it's really important we know how to do these things by hand, because it ensures we understand what's going on. The last one's really easy in Python too. I just put the values. X is going to be 1, Y is going to be 1, Z is going to be 0, and then I write the whole thing, parentheses, X or Z, and not Y or not Z. Ta-da, false. False is 0. I could just write them also as X is true, Y is true, or, and here, this is false. I could get the same exact result because 1s and 0s are exchangeable with trues and falses, respectively. So this is extremely simple in Python. And you're going to notice that many things in discrete math are extremely simple in Python. And that's exactly why we want to use Python as a calculator. Your high school calculator will not help you do these things. You will suffer more than you would with just a notebook. But with Python, all of this is going to be really easy and really straightforward. If anyone's on Twitch that actually wants to be on our Discord, We don't really give the invite to everybody because we don't want Chinese bots and whatnot. But if you want to join us, find me on Twitter. I have the same username, Sato Elisa. You send me a direct message on Twitter and I will send you the Discord invitation. That way you can join us if you want to. Okay, so let's make one final poll. So if you think you understood the Python part well enough to replicate it on your own, the green mark. If you have a question about the Python stuff, the question mark. If you need a little more time to process this, confused face. If you showed up halfway through and you don't want to stop everybody, then the sleepy face. It's entirely fine to ask more complicated questions about these things, but I would ask you to direct the complicated questions on the Python channel so that the people who are just trying to pass a discrete math course won't be horribly confused with the stuff you're asking. So if it's a programming question, you can take it to Python if it's specific to Python language. And we have a programming channel if it's not a language specific question and you want to discuss that thing in more detail. If it's directly related to the discrete math study material, you are welcome to discuss it also here on the discrete math channel. But I'm a little worried that some people who didn't have such good luck with their programming teachers or with their high school teachers might be really uncomfortable if we start getting into like very fine detail of how stuff works on the computer. So let's try to separate the advanced extracurricular stuff to other channels so that other people won't feel bad if we're just branching out to whatever weird stuff here on the discrete channel. So that's the stuff we needed to do today. And now we're going to go see if you guys actually did it. So we're going to go to the Resultados. It's really important that you guys check this every single time because you might have written your email for the homework wrong, which would make your points not appear. And now that you have the questions in fresh memory, it's really easy to redo them. So remember, this is not your entire student ID, it's just the last 6 digits. If you've registered, your study program shows up here. If you haven't bothered to register, you have question marks. And we should all have a 10 here in the first column. So this person's fine. They have 10. These two people are still struggling to get one of the questions right, as well as this person here. This person's fine. This person's already in the second homework. Notice you can do as much homework as you want to. One guy already did everything. There's no like a limitation to you guys doing more homework. But this week, everybody should be aiming for a 10. Before next class, we should have a 10 so that next time we can start working on the second homework. If your points seem to be mysteriously missing, you need to go over whether you were using the right email. If you registered the wrong email by accident, you need to send me your student ID by direct message saying that you need to reset your registration. It's really important to register the exact email you're using for the homework. So we can see here that 85% of the M4 students have already done something. So 15% haven't done anything. And the people who have actually done something have on average completed 4 out of the 5 questions. My guess is they're stuck on question 3 or question 4. That's where people usually get stuck. Study program wise, we have 70% participation from the systems engineering people, 89 from the software people, and 78 from the mechatronics. And the highest progress is also with the system admin people. They're at 60%. They have answered 3 questions on average, whereas the other 2 study programs are at about a half at this time. So just make sure you're keeping track of your points. And I can't think of anything else that we really need to look at today. Remember to study the material. So everything that comes in the homework page before homework 1, you should have already read it. You should already be familiar with it. If you're not, please read it. And also start reading the stuff for the second homework, because we're going to do the second homework next week. So I'm supposing you've also read the material for the second homework. If you can't remember where those are, you just ask the bot Tareas. It sends you to the homework page. If you want to skip to a certain part, you can just click here to skip to the homework, or click here to skip to the unit. So the unit 1 was homework 1, unit 2 is going to be homework 2. So all of this stuff here in Combinatoria, everything, it's section 1.2 in Grimaldi, section 4.4 in concrete mathematics. It's all explained here. This is the stuff you are supposed to study for next week. So that next week you're familiar with these things, so that we can start doing this stuff here. And if you want to check which all topics you should be looking at, you look at the calendar here. We're going to answer questions 1 and 2 next week. So that's the part about permutations and combinations, factorials and binomial coefficients. Then the week after, we're going to be working with the Fibonacci sequence and the Turing machines. So you can make a rhythm for your reading, so that you will read the combinatorial basic stuff, permutations and combinations for next week. And then you will read about the sequences and the automata for the week after. Then we're going to spend 3 weeks simply doing practice exams for the midterm, topic by topic, making sure you guys dominate absolutely every single one of those topics. So all the reading is on you, all the practicing is together. Because I really believe this is the best way to learn. I really don't believe you guys learn anything by listening to me read a book. So this is all for today. If you're very confused, remember we're going to do all of this again in Spanish, starting at 12. So in 23 minutes, I'm starting over the same exact stuff, but in Spanish. I'm going to rhythm it a little differently. We're going to do the problems one by one, first on whiteboard, then on Python. Whiteboard, Python, whiteboard, Python. So if you want to look at one particular question, you can join us when we're at that question. And remember, you can look at the YouTube video that goes through all the 5 questions of the first homework one by one. Really important for next week. Everybody please have 10 points. Everybody please go over the study material until you get to the part about permutations and combinations. When you've seen the binomial coefficient, you're fine. You can stop there for next week's class. But I'll catch you guys next Thursday.